Hello, my name is Wesley George, and this is my research project, Capital Punishment Should Be Abolished for COMM 1511. Can a person forfeit their right to life? Should extreme crimes like murder be punishable by death? Does the death penalty deter violent crimes? Is there any bias when it comes to capital punishment? Has the state ever executed an innocent person? These are questions that most of us don't think of often, but they're debated still to this day in the United States. The main question that connects all of these: should capital punishment be legal in the United States? I am a firm believer that the government has no right to kill any citizen and that capital punishment should be abolished. In order to understand capital punishment in the United States, I believe we must first cover some of its history. The following timeline comes from the History of the Death Penalty, a timeline published by the Death Penalty Information Center. In 1608, Captain George Kendall became the first recorded execution in the colonies. Didn't want to be first for that. 1767, Baracus' essay on crime and punishment theorizes that there is no justification for the state to take a life. In the late 1700s, the United States abolishment movement begins. In 1834, Pennsylvania becomes the first state to move executions into correctional facilities. In the 1900s, beginning of the progressive period of reform in the United States, 1907 to 1917, 9 states abolished the death penalty for all crimes or strictly limited. 1930s, executions reached the highest levels in U.S. history. 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaiming the right to life. June 1972, Furman versus Georgia, the Supreme Court suspends the death penalty. 1976, Gregg versus Georgia, guided discretion status approved, death penalty is then reinstated. November 1998, Northwestern University holds the first ever national conference on wrongful convictions and the death penalty. The conference brings together 30 inmates who were freed from death row because of innocence. More recently, let's fast forward a little bit to March 2021, when Virginia became the 23rd state to abolish capital punishment. So, back to my first question. Can a person forfeit their right to life? Should crimes like murder be punishable by death? Roger Hood, in his Encyclopedia Britannica entry Capital Punishment, states, supporters of the death penalty believe that those who commit murder, because they have taken the life of another, have forfeited their right to life. They also believe capital punishment is a form of retribution, expressing and reinforcing the moral indignation, not only of the victim's relatives, but of law-abiding citizens in general. Opponents to capital punishment argue that by legitimizing the behavior that the law seeks to repress, killing, capital punishment is counterproductive in the moral message it conveys. When used for lesser crimes, I believe that capital punishment is even more immoral because the harm done is disappropriate. Capital punishment also violates a person's right to life. When it comes to deciding if capital punishment is moral, the view of the death penalties differ by religious affiliation. According to Pew Research Center's article, 10 Facts About the Death Penalty in the U.S. by John Gramlich, around 2/3 of Protestants in the U.S. favor capital punishment, though support is much higher among white evangelical Protestants than it is Black Protestants. In the graph, you can see here that it breaks down U.S. adults and their religious affiliation or unaffiliation and how they feel about the death penalty. Does death penalty defer violent crime? According to Grimlich, 6 in 10 people say the death penalty does not deter people from committing serious crimes. In the article, Murder Rate of Death Penalty States Compared to Non-Death Penalty States, published by the Death Penalty Information Center, the murder rate in non-death penalty states has remained consistently lower than the rate in states with the death penalty. The article also states that 10 out of 12 states with the death penalty have homicide rates below the national average. With lower homicide rates, it's hard to argue that capital punishment is a deterrent. Is there any bias when it comes to capital punishment? The short answer is yes. The image below found in Capital Punishment 2020 statistical tables published by the U.S. Department of Justice shows the demographic characteristics of prisoners under sentence of death in 2020. Out of the 2,469 prisoners, 56.5% are white, 41.1% are Black, 0.7% are American Indian or Alaska Native, and 1.7% Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. Even though Black people only make up 13.4% of the US population, they represent more than 41% of the inmates on death row. Another issue is a person's socioeconomic background. For example, if a person is accused of a crime but cannot afford legal representation, their defense may have less resources than the prosecution. This lack of resources could cause them to have an unfair trial, resulting in the death penalty, where someone with more resources may have received a different sentence or be convicted when they are innocent. Has the state ever executed an innocent person? According to Greenwich, 78% of people polled said there is a risk that an innocent person be executed. For me, this is one of the most important reasons to abolish the capital punishment. There is no way to know 100% that the person being put to death of the crime they are charged with is guilty. I believe that state killing one innocent person is too much innocent blood. Unfortunately, once a person is executed, the drive to open up their case and prove they're innocent, it kind of fades. With that being said, we do have plenty stories of people who were found to be not guilty after being sentenced to death row. Philip Morris wrote an article in the National Geographic, Sentenced to Death, but Innocent. These are the stories of justice gone wrong. In the article, he states that since 1973, more than 8,700 people in the U.S. have been sent to death row. At least 182 were not guilty. In the article, he tells the story of 8 people who were released from death row after a new trial found them not guilty. The reasons for their cases being appealed vary from new DNA evidence, witnesses recanting their statements saying they were coerced before, to them receiving an unfair trial because their defense lawyers was making no attempt to prove their client's innocence. So, I ask you these questions again. Can a person forfeit right to life? No. The state has no right to take someone's life. Should extreme crimes like murder be punishable by death? No. The law should not legitimize the behavior the law seeks to repress. Is it humane? It is humane to violate a person's right to life. Does the death penalty deter violent crime? No. States with no death penalty have lower homicide rates, showing that this is not a deterrent to many. Is there any bias when it comes to capital punishment? Yes. Capital punishment disproportionately punishes Black people and those from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Has there ever been an execution of an innocent person? Most likely. And the risk of the state killing one innocent person is one too many, especially if the next innocent person is you. Thank you.